Born into House Bolton, an old family of the North, little is known of Roose Bolton's childhood or family tree. We know his house has had bad blood with House Stark since the Long Night, with many battles being fought between the two. Even after the Starks made the Boltons submit, rebellions would still occur. This bad blood might be why Ned Stark, even though he never had a reason to complain about Roose Bolton, never truly trusted him. It's interesting that we haven't been given a Bolton family tree, so the details of Roose's parents, grandparents, and other family information is mostly unknown. Besides a few details, we haven't even really learned what Roose was up to before the books. Roose was the heir of House Bolton and became the Lord of the Dreadfort at an unknown time. We also know he fought in Robert's Rebellion, and Roose answered Ned Stark's call for his bannermen. Though Roose's accomplishments during Robert's Rebellion are not stated, Roose was present at the Battle of the Trident, where in the aftermath, he counseled Robert Baratheon and Ned Stark to cut Sir Barristan Selmy's throat, but that advice wasn't followed. What else do we know about this Bolton? Well, Roose is believed to be past 40, with a plain and ordinary face that has no wrinkles and scarce a line to tell the passage of time. This gives him an ageless appearance and creates a certain stillness about him. He is typically clean-shaven, and his lips are so thin when he presses them together, they appear to vanish. He has a pale, soft, average-sized, hairless body, and though he's been in battles, he has no scars. He's said to smell sweet, but it's not necessarily a pleasant smell. He's also described as having two very distinguishing features: pale eyes and a soft voice. His eyes are described as being darker than milk, and look like two dirty ice chips. His voice is said to be whispery, spider soft, but when he speaks, men quiet to hear him, so much that the straining for people to hear him has made his chambers strangely hushed at times. He is also believed to be rather health conscientious, and has a strong belief that leeching removes bad blood and all the rage and pain. It's important to note that this belief isn't unique to Roose though, as we see maesters also encourage leeching for multiple reasons, including getting rid of bad blood. However, Roose leeches so much that he has earned the nickname the Leech Lord. Besides leeches, he eats prunes to help with moving the bowels and prefers hippocras to wine. Hippocras in our world has been prescribed to help with digestion and by physicians in the past to help with health. We also know Roose is known as a cold, cruel, and cunning man, and that on his face, rage and joy look much the same. His mere presence is enough to unsettle some people, such as Robb Stark, who said on multiple occasions Roose scares him. Theon Greyjoy also thinks that Roose was no man to jape with, and that he had more cruelty in his pinky toe than all the Freys combined. In the books, Lady Dustin gives a wonderful description of Roose's coldness and cruelty. Roose has no feelings, you see. Those leeches that he loved so well sucked all the passions out of him years ago. He does not love, he does not hate, he does not grieve. This is a game to him, mildly diverting. Some men hunt, some hawk, some tumble dice. Roose plays with men. She goes on to explain that people are just Roose's playthings. This coldness can be seen in how casually he talks about certain topics, whether it is the death of any of his future children, or discussing how human skin is inferior for boots and will not wear as well as cowhide. Roose's armor reflects his personality, cruel, cunning, and cold. He wears dark gray plate over a quilted tunic of blood-red leather. His rondels are in the shape of human heads, with open mouths that appear to shriek in agony. He wears a pink woolen cloak embroidered with droplets of blood and a closed helm with long streamers of blood-red silk. Despite being known for his cruelty, Roose uses the motto, "A peaceful land, a quiet people," as how he tries to rule his land. He believes that having fear and people fearing you to a certain degree is important. However, Roose makes a point that no tales have ever been told about him. The context of this conversation heavily implies that Roose may have done some unsavory things, but he has done them in a way that has kept it from getting out, and perhaps from getting him in trouble with the Starks when they ruled the North. A bit fascinating, though Roose is described as a passionless man, he does practice the Lord's Right of First Night, a practice forbidden in the Seven Kingdoms, which may show that he does have a passion for women, or maybe rape, or that he simply likes the power it gives him. We have one major example of Roose utilizing his right of first night. One day, before Robert's Rebellion occurred, a miller married without Roose's leave or knowledge. Feeling cheated, Roose had the man hanged and claimed his right of first night under the tree where the miller was swaying. In retelling the story, we again see his capacity for coldness. Roose tells the story, saying the woman wasn't worth the rope, and also throws in a fox he was hunting getting away and his horse turning up lame, making it a dismal day. There again seems to be a lack of passion on his part. This example of Roose taking Lord's right of first night is even more important as it's from this rape Ramsay Snow would be born. Something Roose didn't know until a year later when the woman would go to the Dreadfort with a red-faced Ramsay and claim it was Roose's. He first thought about whipping her and throwing the child down the well until he saw the child had his eyes. The woman then explained to Roose that her dead husband's brother saw those eyes and beat her bloody and drove her from the mill. That annoyed Roose, so he gave her the mill and had the brother's tongue cut out to make sure the man wouldn't go to Winterfell with any stories that might have disturbed Lord Rickard. Every year he would send the woman some piglets and chickens and a bag of stars, with the understanding that she'd never tell the boy who fathered him. Later, the woman would reappear at the gates of the Dreadfort, demanding a servant for the child who was growing up wild and unruly. Roose would give her his foul-smelling servant Reek as an amusement. Despite Roose telling the woman to never tell Ramsay his parentage, she would disobey and whisper in Ramsay's ear about his rights constantly. Ramsay would later cause more trouble in Roose's life. Roose has been married 3 times. His first marriage was to an unknown woman. His second marriage was to Bethany Riswell. Bethany would die of a fever, but before that she gave Roose an heir, Domeric. Unfortunately, Domeric would die in 297 AC, 1 year before the events of the first book, and it would end up leaving Roose without an heir. A maester would claim a sickness of the bowels took Domeric, but Roose believes his bastard, Ramsay, poisoned his son. Interestingly, it is the death of his true-born heir that prompts Roose to take Ramsay to the Dreadfort. Years after that, Roose would betray the Starks, leading to Ramsay being legitimized and claimed as his true heir. Something Roose isn't afraid to remind Ramsay of. All you have I gave you. You would do well to remember that, bastard. But Roose also isn't afraid to remind him of his conception. As the famous line goes, "Get those keys and remove those chains from him before you make me rue the day I raped your mother." Roose's third marriage is to Walda Frey, a plump woman and the granddaughter of everyone's favorite Lord Walder Frey. Roose has a certain affection for her and the noises she makes in bed, as he disliked how his other 2 wives would just lay there and never make a sound. Roose believes that if his new wife pops out sons like she pops in tarts, the Dreadfort will soon be overrun with Boltons. However, he also says that Ramsay will kill them all, but it is for the best, even if his wife will grieve. Roose doesn't believe he will live long enough to see the new sons to manhood, and that boy lords are the bane of any house. This is an unexpected view, as he has said Ramsay should have been content to grind corn, and questions if Ramsay really thinks he could ever rule the North. He also expresses a dislike of many of Ramsay's habits, wishing he'd act more like a Bolton. Here's where we're going to dive into his actions in the books. If you don't care about a repeat of his actions or don't want book spoilers and maybe potential show spoilers, I would stop listening now. In the first book, Roose would show up at Winterfell to answer Robb Stark's call for banners when Robb's father, Eddard Stark, was imprisoned in King's Landing, and also to help the Riverlands. At one point, Roose would be given control of the Northern Foot to take care of Tywin Lannister and his forces, while Robb freed Riverrun from a siege. At the Battle of the Green Fork, Roose would lose against Tywin Lannister and his forces. After the lost battle, Roose would manage to regroup 2/3 of his army at the causeway of Moat Cailin. Robb would be crowned king in the north, and Roose would go to the Twins to marry his third wife talked about earlier, Walda Frey. Roose would also occupy the Ruby Ford. Later, Edmure Tully would order Roose to join Sir Tallhart to march on Harrenhal. To accomplish this, Roose decided to make a deal with the Brave Companions' leader, Vorgo Hoat, in order to reduce the loss of his own men. With their help, and some of Arya Stark's, who was present at Harrenhal at this time, Roose would take Harrenhal from the Lannister forces. Here, Arya would become Roose's cupbearer for a small amount of time, and Roose would use the castle as his base. At the castle, it is believed Roose would first begin to undermine Robb Stark's cause, even though there is debate that he started at the Battle of the Green Fort. He would release Jaime Lannister and send Tallhart and Robert Glover to attack Duskendale. Roose would also make an alliance with Walder Frey and Tywin Lannister to betray Robb Stark for the title of Warden of the North, the legitimizing of Ramsay, and other benefits. Roose would be summoned to the Twins, and on his way there, while crossing the Trident, he would be attacked by Gregor Clegane. Roose would leave Stark loyalists to guard the river, and he would take Carhold and Dreadfort men, obviously loyal to him, with him to the Twins. At the Twins, we would see the deal made with Roose happen at the Red Wedding. where Edmure Tully was to marry a Frey girl in place of Robb Stark, who had went back on his word and married another girl. Here Roose also blames the disastrous battle at Duskendale, where Lannister and Tyrell forces crushed Tallhart and Glover, on the initiative of Robert Glover. And Roose points out Roose's own soldiers didn't join in the battle. So he essentially deflects blame from himself. At the Red Wedding, thousands of Stark and Tully loyalists along with Catelyn and Robb Stark would be killed, the latter being personally slain by Roose. After the wedding, as promised, Roose became the Warden of the North, Ramsay became a Bolton and his heir, and with Bolton and Frey forces, Roose would return to the North. This began a time of Roose attempting to pacify Stark-loyal Northerners. While most would submit to his rule through fear, it's stated he is little loved. It is believed that if Roose is bloodied, many would turn from him, which is a problem as Stannis, after helping Castle Black, began his march into the North, gathering forces to get rid of the Boltons, Freys, and Ironborn. Roose, instead of meeting Stannis in battle, attempts to use the Karstarks to lead Stannis into a trap. This trap fails when Jon Snow sends Stannis a warning. Roose, to further secure the North, add legitimacy to his claim as Warden of the North, and to lure Stannis into attacking, stages a wedding between what people think is the real Arya Stark and Ramsay at Winterfell. He has the damaged castle repaired by 24 squatters to rebuild Winterfell in exchange for his mercy. The squatters finish the work, and then Roose hangs them, showing mercy by not flaying them. Eventually the Northerners come to Winterfell and attend the wedding of fake Arya and Ramsay. The wedding happens, but tensions begin to rise at Winterfell between the Freys and Manderleys, the incoming attack by Stannis, and the series of mysterious murders and the ghost of Winterfell. At one point, a Frey attacks Wyman Manderley for insulting a murdered Frey. This leads to Roose commanding the Freys and Manderleys out of the castle to attack Stannis. Roose currently sits in Winterfell surrounded by who he thinks are his allies. But how do the Northerners really feel about Roose? I will state again, it's said Roose is feared but little loved. It's believed as Stannis bloodies the Boltons, the Northerners will abandon him, as the North remembers and a lot of Northern lords lost kin at the Red Wedding. An event the Northerners can guess, and some know, that Roose had a hand in. How much does every lord know the extent of Roose's treachery? And which ones plan on betraying him? I believe we'll get the answers next book. We do know the Northern Mountain Clans definitely do not like Roose. One of my favorite quotes by a member of the Northern Mountain Clans, "Let me bathe in Bolton blood before I die. I want to feel it splatter across my face when my axe bites deep into a Bolton skull. I want to lick it off my lips and die with the taste of it on my tongue." The Northern Mountain Clans refuse to let Roose hold Winterfell and want who they think is real Arya out of the grasp of his bastard. How do you feel about Roose? What do you think is his endgame? Do you think he's being an idiot and falsely believes he can hold the North? What makes you love or hate him? Do you think he's a good military commander? Why do you think he seems so uncaring about his past and future dead children? New Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire videos every Sunday and Wednesday, and sometimes other days. We still have a few Bolton videos, including theory videos to get through, then we will be moving on to the Mormonts.